Good evening, guys. Rusty here, and welcome back to Gear Night for another Thursday evening. I hope you're well. Hope you've had a good week. 2 weeks. Sorry we missed last week. I hope you've had a wonderful 2 weeks, unless you're stuck in Victoria. But we'll get onto that with our guest in a moment. Let us know if you're here. Tell us in the comments. Tell us what you've been up to. If you've been shooting, anything on those lines. If you've been behind a gun, near a gun, around a gun, working on a gun, or not near a gun at all. That's I think they're all the options. Andy is not with us tonight, unfortunately. He has other things to do. Apparently that's what people do, is other things, apparently. So we'll get straight into it, to tonight's guest, and I'm driving the show as well over here, so excuse me for looking over that way, but we'll get there. Tonight he has been involved with shooting for a long time. We'll find out how long tonight, but he has done it significantly in 2 different countries, has worked for a major firearms and accessories importer, and shot competition for a couple of different styles of shooting, and also can play harmonica. So Dave Acker, how are you, mate?
I am doing fantastic. It's great to be back, man. How you been?
Yeah, doing well, mate. How is the lovely situation in Victoria rolling out for you?
A lot of dry firing, really, at the end of the day. So hopefully that pays off once we're back out at the range. Let's see if live ammunition changes the routine at all.
Well, I guess at least you've had a chance to sit there and dry fire, and knowing that's pretty much all you just spend doing that, and the harmonica that you've taken up recently.
Yes, actually, yes. We'll go over that gear. I don't know. At the end next. I don't know. We'll see, I guess, but.
Yeah, that's definitely gear that you got to cover in Gear Night. But,
yeah, big time. I thought that's what this whole thing was about originally, until you
was
said,
harmonic?
No, it's for Pack Dynamics. Yeah.
Yeah, you only worked that out on the intro when I talked about what you're here for, and you're like, oh,
yeah,
hang on, he didn't mention harmonica enough.
Yeah, and I'm like, rifles. Okay, cool. Yeah, okay.
Very good, guys. We slight technical challenges. I can't see any of the comments that are coming through, if there are any comments coming through. So we'll try and fix that while we chat away. But Dave, opening with the classic question: first gun you shot. First gun, what was it?
First gun I shot was a Daisy side lever single shot air pistol. And I remember very vividly, it was up at, now, are we going for a powder fired rifle, or are we going just for rifles, air rifles? And you know what? Do both.
Mate,
first one,
Dave, let's cover all aspects, all right? All aspects.
Nice. All right. First thing that wasn't a water gun or a Nerf gun.
Yes.
Would have been, single shot, side lever, Daisy air pistol. And it was at my friend's cottage, and we were crouching under his canoe as it was propped up against his patio. I don't know why we were shooting from under the canoe, but we were shooting from under the canoe. I remember quite vividly, at a tin can in a
First
tree.
thing that wasn't That's an unusual position to be shooting from, but I'm impressed. Yeah. Well done.
Yes, I think I might have been 12 or 13 at the time, maybe 12. But and then after that, the first, I guess, powder fired rifle, is that what we want to call it? I don't know. Firearm that used gunpowder would have been my Grampy's 22, once again at a tin can up by his deer hunting camp. I think I would have been maybe 13.
Yep.
Something like that, in around there. So, yeah. Or whatever the earliest ages you can shoot. I think it's 13 back home. It would have been 17 years ago or something now. Yeah, so.
Fantastic.
But it was actually interesting, because when I did my first shot, I didn't think I hit the can, because I shot at the can and it didn't move. And I'm like, it's right at it. What is this? And then I walked up and it just pierced straight through the can, and the can just stayed where it was. So, yeah.
Right. And you've been claiming that you hit the target when you may or may not have ever since.
Yeah. The big thing to do when we were practicing the air rifles back home was you just shoot into the forest and go, I hit the tree I was aiming for.
and then you grab the harmonica and bust it out.
Yeah.
Good.
That's what we're all about back home, Nova Scotia.
I've worked you out. Fantastic.
Air rifle, air guns, and harmonicas.
Good. And marrying your cousins.
Yes, and the flavorless mush called root marm. Don't forget that.
Right. We'll move on from the Simpson quotes, although I'm sure they'll make a return because there's no way around it with you.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's my second love to shooting. It goes shooting and then Simpsons, I think. Or maybe that's debatable. People might question that, but anyway, this is gear night. Not
we've gone very much off. Let's bring it back on. Yeah. So, first gun you owned was it in the same vicinity?
First gun I owned would have actually been, once again, surprisingly, considering some of the rifles, an air pistol. Mm-hmm. The first one I actually owned would have been, yes, an air pistol. It was an Emmerich Walther compressed air sort of thing.
Yep.
Still have it back at my parents' house. Shoot it when I go back. Yeah, great, neat little gun, plenty of fun. Being CO2 cylinder, I mean, the first couple magazines are fantastic, but then after that, you can kind of watch your pellet. Wait, no.
Take it back. Take it back.
I do take that back. That is the first firearm I purchased with my own money.
Okay.
My first ever firearm that I owned, and I can't believe that I forgot this, was my Grampy's single shot Daisy lever action air rifle. This was one of the ones where to load it, you actually, and it wasn't even air, it was a BB gun. Mm-hmm. So it was like the Red Ryder BB guns from A Christmas Tale or whatever it is, that movie, which you'll shoot your eye out, kid. One of those.
Okay.
You actually, I still have both of those. Or similar. And you actually dropped the BB into the muzzle and then cocked it. Mm-hmm. And you always had to aim right because you could always see the BB when you shoot go.
Put some solid spin on that.
And I think the stock was held into the gun with about 5 or 6 nails bent in all directions. So it's a good rig.
Yeah. Oh, Canada. Yes. Good stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
Nice. And then into the air pistol.
Yes. So that would, my Grampy's air BB gun would have been the first one. And I actually put a lot of rounds through that. And then buddies with their single shot break actions and stuff, because those were all pretty prevalent where I grew up. And it was, I don't need to buy one. All my buddies have one. Mm-hmm. And then, eventually when I got staff discount where I was working, I got an air pistol. So
where were you working?
I was working at a hardware store called Canadian Tire.
Okay.
And best way I could describe it to the Australian audience would be if Bunnings, Bob Jane's, Ray's Outdoors, and Kmart all conglomerated into one store. I kid you not.
Okay. And what was it called? Canadian Tire.
And throw some super cheap auto in there as well, because there's car parts and service section. And yes, the store, it's a national store. It's called Canadian Tire, and they have their own currency. Like you go in, I think they do it on a card now, but if you spend like $100, you would actually get this little bill for like $1 Canadian Tire money, which was basically money you could spend at the store. So, yeah.
Right. And did you use Canadian Tire money to buy any guns?
I think the staff discount was better, and I don't think you could combine staff discount and Canadian Tire money into the same thing from memory. But although I did see people buy barbecues with that stuff. So.
Oh, good, nice. Well, we're sidetracked again, and then so from the air pistol, what I know about you is you really got into rimfire competition. But was that the next step, or something in between?
Yeah, no. So I kind of got into me and my buddy, we shot that air pistol, really liked it. And his dad was actually really involved with the local shooting sports club, Annapolis Valley Shooting Sports Club. So we actually joined their junior program. Once again, I think it would have been around 12 or 13, whatever the youngest age is. I can't remember. It's around there.
Yep.
And that was small bore. I think it was every Tuesday and Thursday. And that was a 20-meter sporting rifle. So basically prone, shooting glove on a mat, 20 meters. I think it was 10 shots on a card with 5 targets, or 10 shots, 1 shot each target, 10 targets. I can't quite remember the exact format. But did that for a few years, I think till I was about 15, 16. And then I kind of got into skateboarding, gridiron football, a bunch of other stuff. It kind of fell off the radar, unfortunately. In there, I also was in air cadets for a year or two. I was going to, because I kind of originally joined that for shooting as well, but then being an Army offshoot sort of thing, it was far too bureaucratic. And you basically had to do like probationary practice, like rubber gun handling for a year, and then you could shoot an air rifle. I'm like, I'm going to get more out of shooting just by sticking with the junior program at the gun club. So
yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. And what were you using when you were shooting your 22 at the gun club?
The 22, the one I had was actually a custom jobby, a martini type action.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, believe it or not. So I guess a single shot lever action would be the best way to put it. The standard and the gun safe there, it was full of the kind of the fine work brow and Anschutz sort of single shot target rifles. I think Anschutz 1905 type actions. I think they come in a variety of different stocks or something, but basically the stuff you'd find at ISSF sort of competition. So yeah.
Fantastic,
yeah.
mate.
Nice, exhilarating, sit there and take 2 minutes to take your one shot sort of thing, you know?
Real action-packed stuff that you really like, yeah.
Big time. Yeah.
And when did you move over to Australia? What sort of caused that to come about?
So I actually moved here, I would have been 23, and that's I kind of, because I grew up in a small town in Nova Scotia, Kenville is what it was called. Then I moved to the big city, Halifax. It has like 200,000 people in the urban area, so very big, you know.
Wow, moving up.
Yeah, and then so I lived in the big city, did my undergrad, and then I finished that up and really liked university. So the opportunity came to study at the University of Melbourne, so moved down here. And then I can tell you now, I never, coming from where I came from in Canada, I thought the last place I'd ever revisit shooting would be living in inner north Melbourne, Australia.
Yeah. And so you've come over here to study for uni, and how have you ended up shooting again?
So there's a neat little quirk about Melbourne, which a lot of people might not know, is from back in the early 1900s, which I've been told I haven't really looked into it too far, but back when Australia's army was still basically a militia, or the majority of it was still a militia, they used to have rifle clubs and rifle ranges next to all the train stations, because it's where you had to go to practice for your army, whatever you're doing, I've been told.
Right.
So there's all these nifty little small bore rifle clubs in the inner suburbs of Melbourne. And I used to take this train line that goes up to Northcote, Fairfield area where I live now. And I always went by this shed and it said Northcote Rifle Club. And the first year or so I was down here, I didn't really have time for much else aside from school. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to Google that, because I just, there can't be a functional rifle club this close to Melbourne. Like I can see downtown Melbourne. And then I Googled it and it's like, fully functional rifle club. So I was like, heck yeah. And I was getting some more spare time. So I'm like, you know what? I'll check this out. See if I can get back into some shooting. And went down and met the guys there and kicked it off with them. And next thing I knew, I was a member. And a year later, I was secretary of the club. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, fantastic. And so that's the small bore sort of
yes.
Oh, you explained it better than I.
Yeah, so this one, it's a bit more formal than what I was doing in Nova Scotia. This one is you actually put on the jacket, the big glove, the sling. This is the proper stuff you'd see them doing in the Olympics. So yeah, doing a lot of that. Basically just said, oh, cool, I'm back into shooting and focused on that. And then through that actually, so I spent about a year doing that. And that's when about a year doing that. And then I graduated from my master's and I finished up. I had 2 arts degrees, wanted to stay in Australia. I'm like, well, I'm a bit burnt out on academia. I kind of set myself up to do a PhD. I'm like, I can't be bothered with that at the moment.
Yep.
So I kind of looked at career options and couldn't do anything government wise, which is what I studied down here. And I wanted to stay here because I wasn't a citizen or anything. So I kind of looked. I'm like, my hobbies are shooting and BMX. Don't know about the longevity of BMX, like when I hit 50, if that's going to be something I can really stay involved in. So, and I'm like, plus I can't imagine there's many people with a lot of customer service experience and multiple degrees really clamoring for positions in the firearms industry. So, yeah, kind of got searching around, went into the local gun store. They're kind of like, we can give you some hours here and there, but we know Beretta Australia is hiring, so maybe you should drop them a line. And I did. And next thing I knew, here I am working for Beretta at a national wholesale level. And it was like, what is this? So, yeah. And
nice.
then via that, got back into casually shooting and learning what you guys are all about here down with hunting and spotlighting and how it kind of all works compared to back home. And yeah.
And been PRSing and spotlighting and hunting and shooting sort of ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, well, it was actually funny because I'd been working at Beretta for I think about 2 years when you guys had that first PRS in Mildura.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, by that point I had gotten into reloading and kind of just a little river whacking clays at 500 meters. And I'm kind of sitting there going, okay, I got to do something with all this. I can't just keep shooting clays. I got to challenge myself more.
Yep.
And I was actually looking in F class, but I'm like, I'd really like something more exhilarating because I'm already doing this super precision stuff. Not to say there's not a challenge or anything in F class, but I just wanted something a bit faster paced, you know?
Yeah, sure.
I was actually considering maybe looking to get my pistol license down here because I had been home to visit not long before that and done used all my air pistols and stuff again. And then, I was actually looking at Instagram one morning while having the coffee and this thing of PRS rifles popped up on the homepage. And it's like things you may like. And I'm like, wait, that looks like that stuff they're doing in the States, but that looks like red dirt and like Australian nature around there. What's going on there? And then I got creeping. I was like, oh my God, it's down here now. So yeah. And then 2018, well, here we are. A couple of years later talking about PRS. So I stuck around and you let me join. Or sign up, I guess.
Brilliant, man. Well, just to wind it back a little bit about equipment, because we'll get into PRS stuff, and that's what you've been doing significantly, and also some other cool things that you've been doing we'll talk about in a moment. But for those guys who are in a position, not right now, but those guys who are like in Melbourne or in a city in locations, I wouldn't mind you talking a touch more about some of the 22 stuff you are, because like for 5 minutes away from me, there is a 22 little small bore club doing air rifle on 22, and while for many of our audience that's not the style of shooting they really want to do, the fact is I don't know what nights they shoot, but I probably could be there tonight for an hour putting lead down range, and that's really good practice, and that's really so. Just take us through a little bit about what that is and the equipment that you've been using for that, especially if you're getting started in that side of things.
Yeah. So if we're talking with a small bore type club in Melbourne, you're going to encounter specifically. I know my club, they actually have equipment. I think most of them do, because it's still one of those things. I think that a lot of them would make a fair chunk of coin from a come down and try night, which is, I'm sure would be pretty common at smaller ranges, maybe over where you are and stuff. Yeah. Pretty similar standard of rifles to what I would have used at the rifle club back home growing up, your Feinwerk Browse, your Anschützes, your single shot target stuff. Yep. They do keep it fairly dedicated to people that want to pursue that sport. Yep. It's not necessarily that they're trying to be exclusionary. It's kind of a functional thing too, because they only have about 3 or 4 lanes. Sure. Just given the neighborhoods and stuff, you want to project a really good image and say, we're here to kind of do this sport.
Do our thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a really good, what the sport is really good for is ingraining fundamentals. Because it takes a lot of dedication, a lot of patience. It's not a fast-paced, exciting sport at all.
You're really selling it, Dave.
Yeah. But what it is really good for is learning the mechanics and fundamentals of shooting.
Sure. Yeah.
One drawback you may get from it, Ian, as some of the viewers may know, and you'd know, it's funny because there's a pretty stark difference between the way me and him shoot. Because I grew up doing small bore, where it's take your time, make sure everything's perfect, take everything into consideration, where he grew up spotlighting and he can rack shot. if we got to go in a speed competition like the PRS,
yeah,
a good chance to beat me because he just shoots instinctually. He's like, there's a target. Yeah, go, boom. Where I'm like, all right, breath out, lungs fully out of air, slowly squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Okay, cool. Follow through. 1, 2,
time.
3. Meanwhile, he shot. Yeah. Meanwhile, he shot 5 shots on the target, and I'm like, well, look at you go. But yeah, I will say that style of shooting, it is a very dedicated style of shooting. It's not the Rambo or even the PRS stuff, but it is really good to get led down range, practice the fundamentals, all that sort of thing. So
very nice, mate. And so now you're still doing a fair bit of that, obviously when you can, but you've really progressed into the PRS side of things. So what did you kick off your PRS journey with?
So my PRS journey was, I started with a Tikka Varmint in 308 with a 2-10 by 42 Burris XTR and MOA. 5-round factory magazines.
Yep.
In the 2018 PRS season, the match I shot with that rifle was the best match of my best score of that entire season. And a lot of the stages where I lost points was I just ran out of ammo and pulled the old close the bolt on an empty chamber and click. Mm-hmm. And when you're halfway through a stage in 30 seconds, you know how that story goes.
Yeah.
No bags or anything in that match. 0 bags. I was kind of wedging the forend of the rifle in every hard corner surface of barricade I could find. It was but
yeah, okay.
It was. I was there to have fun and enjoy it, and I looked for the target and hit the targets.
Very good. Oh well, that's the way. And I mean, what's great is that you had the sort of setup that many people start with that 308 with a 2 to 10 scope on it, and you still were able to enjoy it and get plenty of hits on targets and all that sort of thing. Would you recommend someone jump in with the same gear if that's what they have?
Yeah, definitely. Just the biggest thing with PRS is just get out and get started, because that's how you're going to learn. Because searching for shooting advice online is a lot like searching for medical advice, if I could put it another way. You're going to get lost. Everyone who takes the time to write something, typically, I mean, when you get into the Precision Rifle Australia and a lot of the community pages you've created, actually a lot of people generally are really good, I've found. Mm-hmm. But when you get lost on forums and stuff and in Google, I've found everyone who takes the time to write something's an expert, and they don't necessarily know. Whereas if you go to PRS matches and started getting involved, and there's one I forgot to mention too, the Precision Service Rifle, they do a really good league, and that's when I started the PRS. I also started in that. Yep. But getting out there and seeing what works and seeing what doesn't firsthand, that's how you're going to find out what you need. And a lot of the times too, everyone in these disciplines, they're very friendly and they'll let you try the stuff too, because the stuff isn't necessarily the cheapest. When you buy it, it lasts and it's worth the investment, but it can look like a lot of money if you haven't kind of felt it first and don't really know what you're getting into. Like shooting bags, for instance, you pay nearly $200 for a bag full of sand. You're like, why would I do that? That's outrageous. And then you kind of use it and you're like, okay, it makes sense.
I do love the way that you put that. You pay $200 for a bag full of sand. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the way you kind of look at it at the start. Like in Mildura, because my buddy's like, you got to buy at least 1 bag or something. I went along. I'm like, oh, no, that's ridiculous, man. And then kind of beginner's luck the first match, I guess you could say, but running on adrenaline.
Nice. And so what was one of the first changes you made to your equipment setup?
Magazine.
Yes. Yep.
Yes, because I realized that timing out because I ran out of ammo every time, or ran out of time in between mag changes and I'd miss out on shots at the end because I spent too much time screwing around with magazines. So my biggest thing would be, even if you're looking to buy a rifle to get into PRS, get something you can get a 10-round magazine for straight out of the gate.
Yeah. Okay.
It'll save yourself investing a lot quicker. It'll save yourself investing in gunsmithing and or a new chassis right out of the gate. And you can maybe spend that little bit of extra coin on putting extra rounds downrange.
More practice. Yeah, nice. Yeah. And what about the next step for you? What was you changed your magazine over? What came next?
So change the magazine over. Then the next thing for me is kind of a bit... It's kind of a blur because I kept using that setup because I wanted it to work. I was very stubborn and I said, no, the M40A3 sniper rifle, that had 10 power on it. 2 to 10 will do fine. I can stick with MOA. So I kind of did upgrade my scope. I guess after the magazine was the next substantial thing, but I didn't necessarily put it on because I wasn't comfortable with learning mill at that point. I didn't want to screw around in competition. The next kind of thing I changed and used in competition was the caliber of the rifle.
Okay.
Because I was using 308, and then I kind of got reading, and after lining up with what I had read and heard and my experiences in actual PRS matches, PRS is a recoil game, and I think you might have mentioned that.
Sure.
Before, potentially.
From time to
and
time,
what was
we do say that.
Happening. What was happening with the 308 and no muzzle brake was I'd line up on a target and shoot, and after the shot, I have no idea where the shot landed. So if I hit, it was like, yeah, sweet, I'll just do that again. If I missed, I would see dust when I'd kind of be getting back on target, but I'd have no idea where the dust came from. So you're kind of sitting there going, what do I correct for? Oh, here we go. No, Send another one, I guess.
I know I missed, but where to? Where did I miss to?
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
So the next upgrade was to actually another caliber, so 6.5 Creedmoor with a brake, and revolutionary that was.
Change your life.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. Didn't necessarily improve my score. Maybe because someone was doing a little too much overthinking and too focused on data and his equipment and his gear, maybe, rather than on practice, shall we say. But you could tell during practice that it was a much better tool for the job, if you will.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yep. Something a little more dedicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I guess kind of in that realm, switching up to a different caliber and something with a muzzle brake, the next upgrade was switching to higher magnification and Milrad scope. Because I'm like, you think of MOA like it's just how you think. It's like using millimeters versus centimeters or something. It's just how you think. Or millimeters versus centimeters. Centimeters, metric versus imperial. They both do the job. It's just how you think. But then I was listening to a podcast and they said, you got to go mil because it's easier to communicate.
Yep.
And then I got thinking about it. I'm like, oh, you know what it would be? Because a lot of scopes go 0.1 MRAD, which is in that case, an adjustment of 0.5 is the same as 0.5 clicks. When you go on an MOA scope and you go 2 MOA, or this is an extreme example. I'm trying to think of something better, but 2 MOA. Your data says go 2 MOA, which on most scopes is eight clicks. However, you might go 2 MOA and think 2 and go 2 clicks when you're on the line in a PRS match, which is not going to end well for you. So going to your MRAD scope eliminates that thinking and processing and communication error you may get when you're screwing around with your MOA scopes and MOA data.
I guess you're taking one option for a misinterpretation out, where your mind just may have a brain fart and you forget one little conversion. The number you need to adjust is the amount of clicks you need to adjust.
Exactly. You might be thinking 2, but you don't know. You got to remember it's 2 clicks or 2 MOA. So,
yeah. Sure, and many people might think, oh, that's no big deal, like, you know, it seems petty, and maybe it is. but I think when you're under a bit of pressure and you're not quite, you know, you're focused about trying to hit this target and time's running out and all that sort of thing, anything you can reduce a step here and there would be good. Yeah. Absolutely.
One less potential error on the board or in your, it's all about simplifying, you know, the less parts there is to something, the less likely it is to break because there's less parts to break.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that you did mention, though, the communication side of things, is that most other guys shooting PRS are running MRAD as well. And so that communication becomes a little bit more fluent. Whereas if you were shooting F-class or probably what you're shooting with your 22 stuff, you're probably better to run MOA because, again, the people you shoot with are speaking that same language.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I guess with the communication, and it kind of clicked in because I think the context I was listening to the podcast, they were talking about a spotter to shooter type communication. Sure. And then that's when I clicked in and I said, oh, because the way they said it was like, oh, he might say 2 clicks, but you hear 2 and go 2 MOA, where I'm like, oh, and because I think in the match prior to that, I had made that exact adjustment error. And it's like, oh, wow.
Oh, very good. Well, Dave, we're going to come back in a moment and go through Range Day at SHOT Show. I've got some questions about that to ask you, because that's a gear heavy event that you attended. But before we get to that, we have to do check out what's on the shelf. I don't know if you've got a shelf there as well. Maybe you find a thing or two that's on your shelf, although I can probably guess one of them. But it was Father's Day, so I've got cards here from the kids. Dave, I wanted to take you. How close do I look? Is that a good representation?
I'm seeing double Rusty here, man. Calm down.
Right, I'll let my 5-year-old know that she can draw very well. Yeah, it looks pretty similar. Yeah, okay. All right, want to check that. This torque wrenches, I grabbed one of these today after wanting one and thinking about it and then never actually having one. So now I've got one of the torque wrenches, of course, scoped out for that one, which was good. Some coffee. Coffee has arrived again. Be cracking that one open tomorrow, putting that in the Chemex, thanks to Ironside Coffee. Are you on Ironside Coffee, Dave?
I haven't been able to find it anywhere here, although I should probably just buy some on the internet, to be honest, because you plug it everywhere. I remember, I need to try it. Let's put it that way. I'm being slack.
I think you do, mate. I think you do. Get some of that stuff into you. That's good stuff. And we still got. Oh, here we go. It's a little special one. I'm gonna open a pack of these after the show on Instagram for anyone who is following my personal Instagram. And anyway, that's we're not going to bring up too. Otherwise, we'll be here for the next hour if we start talking about this. So we'll save that for after the show. Hopefully you can join us, Dave. And last thing, this is exciting. Lapua Brass is now available at Projectile Warehouse. So 6mm Creedmoor, 6mm BR, and 308 all in stock. This is not Lapua Brass in here. They're just really good boxes. So this is like stickers. There's all sorts of stickers. Do you want to stick it over?
Yeah, sure. Just hand it over, man.
Right, here you go.
Oh, thanks. I wish we were better at special, or I was better at special.
I wish we'd planned that. We always talk about planning it, but now all I've done now is I've just got stickers everywhere. Well, that's we'll deal with that later. Anyway, all right, I need to ask you about SHOT Show 2019, the one we both went to. We won't ask too many questions because lots happened. But particularly Range Day, which is the day where you go out and there's all the exhibitors and they've got guns set up and all that sort of thing. Run us through some of the cool stuff you shot, some of the cool stuff you saw. Give us the overall experience, mate.
So it's pretty cool. I was a bit lucky in the sense that I got to go to the, I think it was called the ATAC Range Day. So the military and law enforcement range day, because I work in that sector through my job. And I was also there helping out because we also distribute aim points. So I was there helping out those guys actually run their range day. Mm-hmm. And they had the range, because obviously take a break, go around, kind of check everything out. It it was really cool. There was everything from, well, your big bolt action guys were there. There was Mile High there with the AIs. Yep. The Cadets people were there. Leopold was there with, I can't remember, I think they had AIs, and all of it, like 338 Norma mags, 338 Lat mags, heaps of AR stuff. Every other booth was an AR, which was really cool. Got to check out a lot of suppressor technology, which isn't something, I guess, readily available to the average Joe down here to try out.
Yep.
Life-changing. That was really cool to shoot.
What did you shoot? What did you shoot suppressed? What did you get behind?
Bolt actions and ARs, Knights Armament. I checked out their stuff, which was also basically everything. It's kind of become the new standard. The only thing that wasn't suppressed, just because I think they're still working out something that can stand up to the torture, was one of the booths had a BAR, as in the Browning automatic rifle or whatever it is. Yep. And I was shooting AI next to that, and oh my god, it was so effing annoying. I hate to say that, but you're sitting there trying to lock the target, because they had a target set up out fairly far, so you're sitting there kind of actually trying to have a half serious go, and it's just but actually the guy running that station, if anyone is big on the Sniper's Hide podcast, was actually Frank Galley, the host of that podcast, running the Mile High station where I got to try this. And yeah, I think he even mentioned in his podcast,
yeah, right. Nice.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah, that was cool. I think I actually made my longest shot ever at that range day as well.
All right. What was that?
I think it was 1,400 yards or something. It was over 1,000 yards. And the wind that day was absolutely ridiculous too. But
you're not wrong. Like we myself, Butters, Danny, Tony, and a couple other guys, we went to a different range day. And the wind was just, by the time we got there, they were actually shutting down. And I believe the reason they claimed that they were shutting down is because where they were, it was sort of in the desert, really, in Nevada.
Oh, yeah.
And it was in amongst these hills and cliffs and stuff. And they couldn't comfortably land a helicopter in case there was an emergency, as in, someone got shot or an accident or something.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so they, based on that insurance risk, they had to shut the range day pretty much as we drove through the door. And so,
I remember kind of
it was windy.
It into you guys.
It was windy. Yeah.
But it was a 338 Norma mag set up, and I'm about 99.9% sure it was an AI. I hope I don't get hollered at by one of the AI's guys on this guy. No such thing exists. Screw you. But being a representative of the quality optics of Burris, Steiner, and Aimpoint, I wasn't going to say this, but I will say it was made at the Leopold booth. So they were rad guys, had really good data, obviously, because I was able to make that shot based on what they were telling me. But yeah. It was also cool because when we were running the Aimpoint day, the big thing there was their red dot sight we were pushing, the Acro. So we had a lot of pistols there, and it was kind of funny because we were running this range day. Obviously, handguns featured predominantly because that's the site it was the grand launch of the Acro. Yep. And it was funny because it was American stereotypes. One of them went to In-N-Out Burger to get us all lunch. And we're sitting there running this handgun day at it was on an Air Force base, I think it was. And it's like, yeah, I get some Australian friends who've never been to America go, oh, what's America like? Is it just all guns and cheeseburgers? I'm like, no, there's more to it. But let me just take a break from this handgun firing line to go eat an In-N-Out cheeseburger right here, all right? It's pretty great.
It summed it up pretty well, man. Yeah, cool. So, and obviously you then spent the week at SHOT that year as well. Any equipment side of things stood out for you? I mean, obviously it's dated now, but anything that you were like longing to see that you managed to get hands on with? Oh, look out, I've thrown him.
To be honest, I was more excited about the experience. At that point,
that means the drinking. I understand what that means. That means that's got nothing to do with guns.
Oh, come on now. I'm a professional. It was good to get out there in the world and meet my suppliers face to face.
Bud Light's not your supplier, mate. Bud Light's not your supplier.
One thing that I was really interested to see at that point, because it hadn't been released to the public yet, was the Burris XTR3, because they had a couple of their demo models there. So it was really good at that stage to get hands-on. And yeah, it was everything they told us it would be, which was awesome. Especially because I, would have to sell it. So I was really excited to get out and check that. The acro from Aimpoint, I just wanted to see kind of everything they did with that. So that was really cool to see. That was the year Daniel Defense, they brought out their bolt action. So I kind of wanted to check that out because they're really well known for their semi-automatic platform. So it was kind of cool to see that in the flesh, I guess you could say, before it landed down here. Aside from that, I mean, just to see everything, I guess, really.
The whole experience. It's certainly something very unique and
big time.
Yeah, disappointed that I don't think I'll be going over next year, which was the plan. But
will anyone be going over next year? Is, I guess, the thing.
Yeah. It certainly seems that they're planning on running it, but I don't think too many guys from here will be going. But anyway, we'll see how we go. No, that's all right. Well, winding you back a little bit, Dave, we left you off when you were talking about changing over to a 6.5 and changing over your optics back onto the PRS train. What 6.5 did you end up running?
The Tikka Tac A1. So luckily through my work, a bit of a marketing exercise was required at that point. So I had to get out there and show what was going on. So yeah, the TAC A1, great rifle forward, solid chassis, no fuss, no muss. I mean, custom guns are rad at the same time. It's like anything custom, there could potentially be some stuff ups here and there that takes some tweaking, and you kind of got to work out tweaks as you go. So it was nice, just plug and play thing, get out to the range, and so worked really well. One thing that we did find because I used that for the finale in 2018, then all 2019. I did have my teammate probably about 2 or 3, Scott McScott, if we will, about 2 or 3 competitions into 2019 going, you should probably put a bore scope down that. I think it might be shot out. I'm going, nah. It wouldn't be that, man. That's just blaming the gear. You can't do that. It's like, you got to remember how many rounds have been through that gun, because this TAC A1 was actually the first one in Australia. It had been through a few range and demo days, if you will.
Right. Yeah.
Upon closer examination after the 2019 finale, it's more or less shooting a musket, but I'm still not going to blame my finale performance on it because I don't know. But it looked like a musket lined with crocodile skin. But this thing, I think, thousands upon thousands of rounds to this thing. And if you actually look at the abuse it took before it even came to me, it's sturdy rig. Because I think most people give a TAC 6.5 about, like, I mean, it depends how precise you want to get, but a good solid barrel life with 2,500 rounds. Because I think we had calculated we would have been pushing that thing close to about 5,000, and I was still running in a competition. So,
right.
Because I think I calculated I probably put about 2,500 rounds through it by myself.
So I'm intriguing at the timing of you actually looking down the bore. You waited until after the series was over. Is that because you're like, I don't want to know during it. I'll do everything and then I'll worry about it? Because I imagine if you looked at it partway through the series, you go, exactly. Yeah. That, and just being stubborn and go, no, I can't blame the equipment, because another thing which I kind of inherited from small bore over to here is in small bore, it's 22, so the gun's never going to wear out. Yeah. And second, it's never the equipment. The equipment is far more capable than you will ever be. And so I was like, it can't be the equipment, it's never the equipment. Now, that being said, I mean, I don't know.
but it's one of those things, your equipment might be shot out and then you lose your confidence. But like I said, I'm not going to blame the equipment. Maybe I can. I don't know. I'm still not going to this day do it though, because I feel that's an easy way out for poor performance.
Oh, very good, mate. So, very good. It just actually back on the 22 side of things. So I imagine those rifles, particularly club guns and stuff, went through a lot of ammo. Did you?
I found the average age of a club gun at a small bore club would probably be, I know I'm not calculating age correctly here, but they probably would have been acquired about the early 70s, early to mid 70s.
Right. And they're still on their original barrel?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Big time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, so if you want a cheap way to shoot 22, not only for the ammo, but also the fact you quite possibly never change that barrel, it seems. Was that common for people to rebarrel?
I don't think I've ever heard of anyone rebarreling a small bore rifle. I'm sure there's someone that's done it, maybe Olympic shooters, I don't know, but even then I'd be a bit dubious. I do know I have talked to some guys because there is 22 bench rest.
Yes.
And that requires freaky precision. How their targets are scored is it's 20 meters, but the actual bullseye, so the 10 ring, I guess the 10 ring you would say, is the exact same size as a 22 caliber bullet. And if there is any of that center circle left when you shoot, it's a 9. It's not a 10, it's a 9.
Okay. Yeah, right. Yeah, so it's going to be it's pretty tight in there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I guess where I was going with this rebarreling guns, I have heard a couple guys that shoot that discipline talk about rebarreling after I think 10,000 rounds or something like that. But yeah.
Oh, good, mate. Good. And so what's next on the agenda? Obviously, you had plans for this year, and did you change any equipment up for this year, or what are you looking at eyeing off for next year?
So the first investment was a new 6.5, another TAC A1, because we got the gunsmiths to look at it and diagnose and go, he's no good. So new rifle there, the XTR3 5.5 to 30, because work decided to give me a jersey and a scope to show off. So that's what I'm running now in terms of optics. Now, in terms of a training rifle, I have a 22, which I invested in because that was something I realized too. I needed to get a good training setup.
Yeah.
So I got the 22, and I've also finally finished building up my 223. And I've called this one the Dave's competitor research gun because nothing on it is anything I sell at work.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
It's a REM 700 action with a Krieger barrel and a KRG X-ray chassis. Yep. Badger ordnance rings, but the optic is a Burris. It's the one I invested in 2018, a 3-15 XTR2 mil.
How do you find the 3-15 magnification for PRS matches?
Gets it done because there's one thing with optics until you get up into maybe the really serious high-end stuff is you never really want to run an optic on max magnification.
Sure.
Just because it's like any equipment, once you push it to its extreme, performance may suffer. I think for a lot of the stuff we do down here, 12 to 13 would do the trick.
Yep.
Definitely. Because I mean, when it comes to acquiring targets, you don't want to be on much higher than that anyway.
Yep.
So definitely get the job done. I'd find where it'd start to suffer a bit is maybe when you start getting those long distance KYL racks.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yep. And because you don't really realize, because we did this test too, and that's why I switched from the 2 to 10 to 3 to 15. Because you'd be on 8 power looking at a small 500 meter target and be like, oh, I'm on target, and you'd shoot and you'd miss. And you go, oh, why is that? And then teammates showed me and looked through a higher mag scope and go, oh, yes, that crosshair probably wasn't exactly on target now, was it? Because it was kind of obscuring what I was looking at.
Okay. Yep.
So you may find some issues on that, but I mean, that's at the point where you start getting picky about your shooting, I guess, too. I mean, the thing with PRS is you got to learn to shoot. That's the biggest thing. Working on this trigger finger, all that's the big thing starting out.
Tell you what, that whatever this was that's going to become a clip that we put out there for Dave.
Work on this.
All right, you guys saw that. That's probably the biggest lesson you'll get from tonight is working on that. Oh, nice. Good, Dave. We'll leave you on.
Outstanding.
Leave you on screen there for that. Brilliant.
I've got too much PRS stuff in my brain, so basic functions like drinking water just do it.
Hey, one question, because you've had you've obviously you rep for, so a rough run about it. You rep for Steiner and Burris in terms of what I'm about to talk about, but binos. Binos, I was talking to someone today about binos and for PRS sort of matches, but using them across hunting and stuff. Do you run binos for PRS matches, and do you have a recommendation in terms of magnification or size or anything along those lines?
I would recommend I run binos, yes, for the PRS, mainly because they're compact and easy to drag around. You can just throw them in your bag and you're off to the races. It's not dragging around a big bulky spotting scope, and it more or less does the job. Personally, I will also, because I run the Steiner military binoculars. I think they're an 8x30, and then I have a set of 6x30s as well. I run Poro prism binoculars.
Okay.
One, just because they autofocus, just due to the physics of it. You look at something and it just focuses in, so you can kind of go back and forth when you're following someone else and maybe trying to figure out what the wind's doing, this and that.
Sure.
All other things being equal, Poros are a tougher bino system.
Okay.
One thing where kind of all the roof prisms better in is because they might be a bit more popular for hunting. So companies have invested more in developing roof prisms than they have in the outdated, like what most people now view as an outdated Poro system.
Yep.
So Poro prism binos and something with a reticle as well.
Okay.
Because what you can do with that is you can gauge your corrections. So you'll want to get I think all military style Poro prism binos are going to be in mil anyway. I have yet to come across a set that is in MOA. Not to say they're not out there, but it's all a carryover from when the mil reticles were used to range stuff.
Yes.
Match up, get a mil reticle and then match it up to your mil scope. And when you're shooting or using it as a spotter for your buddy, you can be like, oh, you're half a mil off the right or this or that. So help make those corrections and use your ammo for hitting targets rather than sinking them into the side of a hill.
Good advice. Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's one I haven't touched on a lot. But a lot of guys are running 8 to 10 power sort of stuff. Binos for that exact reason, but I don't think too many guys are running with reticles. So that's an interesting take on it.
Yeah. It's like I said, it was a correction thing, and it just helps. I don't know. It's a handy thing if you can get a set of preferably Steiner military binoculars. They are fantastic.
Yep.
Actually, I think the Australian, I know the Army uses them to some extent. They're really renowned around the world for their use in militaries. They're super tough, but and the glass in them is outstanding. But enough plugging.
Oh, nice, mate. Nice. Well, mate, Dave, thanks so much for joining us tonight. I think we've covered lots of ground. Hopefully there's some useful information in there for guys to think about and consider. And of course, guys can get in touch. I'm sure you're on Instagram or wherever you're at, or through Beretta asking stuff. And look forward to finally seeing you at a match sometime, I guess, really next year at this stage. Is the way to be. I'm
looking forward to it too. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully all this dry firing pays off. Hopefully live ammo doesn't change the situation.
I'm sure you'll get some time in behind the live gun, and I can't wait to see all the improvement in this thing. Absolutely. Brilliant. Now, look, I know that you've been working on your harmonica, so prep yourself for a harmonica. Rather than our normal music, I'm going to get you to play us out in a moment. So, if you would be so kind to to prep that, get that ready, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back next week. Hopefully, Andy will be joining us as well. And you can check if you. This is up on YouTube. This will be up on the podcast as well, and share it around. And there's some other exciting things coming. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. Have a safe weekend. Enjoy yourselves. Dave, let's kick us off, mate.
First concert to the entire nation. Dueling banjos, good tune. I hope people recognize that.